Jim Sciutto, The Shadow War, Inside Russia's and China's Secret Operations to Defeat America. Welcome to the riveting world of The Shadow War, where the secret operations of Russia and China pose a significant threat to America. This summary takes you on a thrilling journey through the clandestine tactics employed by these two powerful nations, including assassinations on foreign soil, cyber attacks, and military buildup. Through this, understand how their motive lies in undermining Western democracies and disproving U.S. military dominance. Delve into the misjudgments made by U.S. politicians, who have consistently underestimated the true intentions of Russia and China. Finally, uncover the costs of this shadow war, its implications, and the strategies in place to contain these threats.
Putin's Shadow War. A detailed account of Putin's aggression and Moscow's war against the West using assassinations and toxic nerve gas to silence dissidents and silence opposition. The book tells the story of two ex-KGB agents, Sergei Skripal and Alexander Litvinenko, who were targeted by Putin's brutal regime for their dissenting views. Skripal and his daughter were poisoned with Russian-made nerve gas, Novichok, in an English park. Meanwhile, Litvinenko was killed in London, with Russian operatives using a radioactive material which could be traced from a plane to the murder site. The unsettling message was clear: Putin is ready to kill anyone who opposes him, even on foreign soil, and risk the wrath of Western countries in doing so. The book highlights that Putin views Russian occupation as essential, despite its dwindling economic status, and that he's engaged in a shadow war against the West. It's a war of aggression that the US has been slow to recognize, and one that it needs to get a grip on. Putin isn't a potential ally or a democrat in training, he's a brutal authoritarian who wants to keep Russia at the center of the world stage, even at the cost of his people and the United States. The US needs to take a new approach to international conflict, concluding the book's argument, as the old one isn't working in Putin's shadow war. China and Russia's goals. American politicians have a misreading of Russia and China's goals and intentions. They have been mistaken in thinking that both nations want to shape themselves into freewheeling democracies that allow free elections and open dissent. However, the truth is that both countries are brutal autocracies, committed to undermining the West and its democratic systems. China has long been engaged in stealing American intellectual property and technological secrets, claiming territory in the South China Sea, and bulking up its military to defeat the United States. Despite confrontations by the then-President, Barack Obama, China continued with both strategies. It has also been proven that China and Russia have no compunction about doing whatever it takes to win their battle against the West, including killing people, at the drop of a hat. It is a harsh truth that many American policymakers have yet to realize, despite Russia and China's provocative and aggressive behavior that aims to undermine Western powers without starting a shooting war. Cyber attack as a weapon. In 2007, Estonia faced violent riots following the removal of a Soviet-era monument, which soon escalated into a cyber attack. The attack flooded pro-Russian messages and launched a distributed denial-of-service attack on the banking system and economy. The Estonian authorities traced the incursion back to the Kremlin, making it the largest cyber attack by one state on another. Estonia overcame the assault by compelling users to identify an image in Estonian, which Russian bots failed, causing the attacks to dwindle. The incursion served as a playbook for Russia to employ similar tactics against its former satellites, such as Georgia, and Western nations, such as the United States. The cyber attacks followed a clear pattern: Russia views itself as the opposite of the West, aims to create division, sow chaos, and sabotage public confidence in liberal democracies. Chinese cyber espionage. The U.S. government accuses China of being the most active country in stealing intellectual property. The Chinese government has created significant cyber espionage infrastructure over the last 20 years. Despite occasional arrests, Chinese hackers continue to siphon off sensitive information from U.S. companies and government agencies. They have used numerous methods to achieve this, including phishing emails and the installation of malware. One of the individuals caught and prosecuted was Chinese operative Su Bin, who posed as an aerospace entrepreneur to gain access to Boeing's network. Su and associates were able to steal over 500,000 digital files, including data on the C-17, F-22, and F-35 aircraft. They moved the files around the internet via jump servers in various countries before physically delivering them to China. Although Su was caught, most hackers remain anonymous and continue to compromise U.S. national security. It is estimated that dozens of cyber espionage teams currently operate in the U.S. Putin's shadow war. In 2014, Putin's Sochi Olympics were overshadowed by the fall of Russian-backed Ukrainian leader Yanukovych, which Putin believed was orchestrated by the CIA. In response, Putin invaded Crimea and later meddled in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. The shadow war intensified when a Malaysian Airlines plane, MH17, was shot down over Ukraine, killing all 298 people on board. The U.S. intelligence blamed the Kremlin for supplying an SA-11 missile to a pro-Russian separatist cell, who mistook the aircraft for a Ukrainian military plane. Putin's actions led to a sea change in how the US and Europe viewed Russia, and Ukrainian civilians were left to deal with the wreckage and decomposing bodies. China's land grab in the South China Sea. China's approach to claiming shoals and reefs in the South China Sea, turning them into artificial land masses, and building air and naval bases on them is drawing criticism and posing a challenge to American naval power. China's expansionism in the South China Sea aims to develop a formidable fighting force to deter the United States from engaging in a hot war with China. Despite criticism from neighboring nations and presidents, China has not backed down, leaving the United States to grapple with how to keep the peace in Asia in the face of China's growing military, economic, and diplomatic influence. America's vulnerability to celestial threats. Satellites are crucial components of America's communications infrastructure and military power, but they are also vulnerable to kamikaze satellites that can damage or destroy them. China and Russia have developed celestial weapons that could bring the U.S. economy to a halt and disable the most powerful military in the world. The threat is real, and American leaders must take certain defensive measures to minimize the fallout from damage to a few satellites, including spreading GPS and other communications capabilities among more satellites and using the U.S. military's space fence, sophisticated radar to monitor objects in space. Russian hackers, from subtle to blunt force. American bureaucrats played a game of cat and mouse with Russian hackers until the latter abandoned subtlety for blunt force. In 2014, Russian hackers started their assault on U.S. systems without leaving even after the U.S. National Security Agency officials confronted them in cyberspace. The Russian hackers increased their activity before the 2016 U.S. presidential election by breaking into the Democratic National Committee's email systems and divulging the information via WikiLeaks. All of this was done to undermine people's faith in American democracy with little cost to Russia. China and Russia threaten U.S. military superiority. China and Russia are catching up to the U.S. military, particularly in their submarine fleets. These nations aim to destroy U.S. aircraft carriers and launch long-distance attacks on American shores. The U.S. Navy is losing out in the arms race as China may have already overtaken the U.S. in hypersonic weaponry. Russian submarines can manipulate undersea communication cables and track U.S. subs. They may also place a detection system in the Arctic Ocean. U.S. military officials warn that both nations pose a true threat to U.S. carrier groups. This signals the end of a period where American military dominance is unchallenged and unchallengeable. As the U.S. sub-fleet dwindles, both China and Russia are broadening their military might in the hopes of keeping the U.S. in check.
In conclusion, the Shadow War uncovers the striking reality of Russia and China's continual secret operations to destabilize the West, particularly the United States. From assassinations and cyber attacks to the escalating arms race in submarine and space technology, the two nations have relentlessly targeted American power. hindered by flawed beliefs regarding the intent of their adversaries. American policymakers must recognize the ruthless determination of these brutal autocracies to pursue their goals at any cost. As we reach the end of this engrossing journey, the question that remains is whether the world's most powerful country is prepared to face and counteract these devastating warfare tactics.